he's immoral. Okay. He definitely abused his power. He knew that why these women were sleeping with him, obviously, like, you know, why they were throwing themselves at him. But all of those things, in my view, does not constitute. And I think it's really important that we...
Well, aside from that word, is it not criminal for him to physically force himself on somebody?
But it would be criminal for him to physically force himself on somebody.
And you don't think he ever physically forced himself on somebody?
Having examined the cases, no. And in one case, I don't even think he was there. I think the woman, her boyfriend, testified that she made the entire thing up and they still threw the book at him. She was not able to describe his member. I will say, I think that's probably a safe word to say. And it was...
You've already said the R word.
Like multiple times.
She was not able to describe his private parts, which was a huge piece of the reason why all of the allegations against him fell apart, because I don't know if you knew this, but what ended up helping him in the courtroom when like 97 women were saying that he raped them, oops, I did it again, was that Harvey Weinstein, they would say like, oh, he made me fondle his testes. And Harvey Weinstein actually got a bad case of gangrene when he was in the 90s, and he had his testes removed and they were sewn into his thighs. So he has a very distinct looking member. And so all of these women's allegations fell apart. One of the women who put him in prison, the one in LA.
So how do you know that she didn't fondle his thighs?
It's a good thing you weren't on the jury, right?
Cross-examined.
Yeah, right, exactly.
She didn't even know.
Then she tried to plead that she misunderstood the word, and you know they were like, yeah, the people that actually did sleep with him, they were able to then separate because they all kind of described it as like a burn scene, like they were like, there's something very wrong. Seriously, this is.
No,
I'm reading through the testimonies, and that's how they were even able to realize that some women were completely lying. In LA, she got everything wrong. You know, they wouldn't allow him to, think about how crazy this is. They were going to prove she wasn't even at the hotel because that was the one where his defense was, I don't know her. Like all the other ones, he's like, yeah, I slept with her. It was consensual. This one, he's like, I wasn't even there. This is at a whole different hotel. It wasn't the Peninsula. He had a rhythm going. And hers was out of nowhere. Her boyfriend's like, no, she's insane. Like, none of that's true. None of this is true at all.
Wow.
And she, next day, from what she says happened at Mr. C's hotel, posted herself on Instagram in these like sexy shots. Like the morning after Mr. C's hotel comes in and testifies that they had a fire alarm that night. Everyone had to leave in the middle of the night. She didn't recall it. Because she wasn't there.
Well, you said his crotch looked like a fire scene.
Yeah, oh yeah. So. We could maybe have some evidence there, but they just allowed, because she cried on the stand and they instructed her, but look at how she's crying.
So I believe that cases are mishandled.
Yeah.
And I believe that evidence. Do you think OJ did it?
I wasn't like really, I was such a child. I knew nothing about that case.
But I'm sure you've read.
I mean, honestly, no. You don't like kind of go backwards in cases.
Well, what I was saying was I thought the defense was really good and the prosecution was horrible. You know, and he got, but I think it's kind of the same vibe I'm getting from what you're describing in detail. I don't think that they presented a good case, and I think that sometimes, you know, juries are just human beings that kind of go with whatever that social flow feels like, you know, a crying woman versus a guy
That's
who
very
has
scary.
Pacific Palisades in his pants is going to be, you know, it's the lilt is that way. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
I think sometimes, though, personally, I think it's dangerous to assume what a victim might look like or how they may act afterwards or what decisions they may make afterwards, because I don't think it's linear. I don't think there's one way to do it. And I think that sometimes it is possible for victims to not even realize they're victims until later on down the road when they really start to reflect and look back at what happened to them. So I don't know if it's just watching your series, to me personally, I don't know if it's completely fair to say, well, I wouldn't have done this. This doesn't seem right to me. I wouldn't have made those decisions afterwards if you're not in that position to make those statements. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I struggle with the emails. I really do. There's just too many of them, and it's over 5 years, you know. I think it would be a fair critique of that if we're talking about what'd you do in the first 48, you know. It's not that. It's with these, it's not that. It's right after buys a ticket, does this for her, does this for it looks very transactional to me. And I do think Los Angeles is a very transactional place, and New York is a very transactional place, and he was at the top, you know. And we can't forget that prostitution is the oldest trade in the book. And when I look at this, I see sugar daddy when I read these emails. I don't see
But
victim.
you can see how that could be very, very hurtful. Even these words that you know.
Yeah, and
because I
yeah.
believe there probably are, and I don't know specifically.
I'm sure it's also hurtful that he sees that his crotch looked like a fire scene.
Yeah, it is.
Just
and
as
but to
hurtful.
be clear, and since you've watched this episode, you know I don't cut him slack on like the abuse of power, the immorality, all of that stuff. I don't want people to think he's like Justin Baldoni, like he's just like a nice guy who got hit by a truck. Like he wouldn't be in the situation if he was faithful to his wife, right? And I think that's important too. But because I know real female victims of things, I think it bothers me. It really does. I don't know any victim of rape or sexual assault or molestation that would engage, and I will carve out an area for it might be different if this is like your dad or like, you know, like where people have a familial relationship where it's different. But when you just have the option to never see this person ever again, to be actively emailing them and asking to see them and saying like, my mom's with me, it's just, I find that to be very atypical. And again, she struggles to say that she's very much like, well, the courts decided whatever it was. That's problematic to me too, because, well, the court decided it was right. That is a very heavy word. The court decided that he is now a rapist. So if you don't agree with that assessment, and he's not agreeing with that assessment, and you're saying, well, I just said like whatever happened and allowed the courts to do it, and now we have the higher court saying that this was a corrupted process, we need to have a bigger conversation here. So I just don't like how Harvey got put away. And you know, I say that, and yes, you're correct. I have sons, but I also have a daughter. So it doesn't, you know, I would do anything to protect my daughter. And so, and I think I am protecting her because I think it's important for women to just think about women who have lived through real, and we all know them, you know, who have just been perfect victims, have had something happen to them. Those women don't get believed when you have someone like a Blake Lively who's like pleading sexual harassment, and then we all watch the tape that Brian Friedman drops and we're like, girl. I think this might be called like acting in a scene, like, you know, improv. I don't know. I did it when I was in drama in middle school.
I don't disagree with what you're saying.
What's funny is if you look at the comments under my Harvey Weinstein series, the real live victims were very angry, not at me. Like going, I would never email, like this happened to me. Like they were sharing their stories in the comments and we're like, I couldn't even look at this person. Like I couldn't even, the idea of like for 5 years going to dinner with this person or having a relationship with them, bringing my mom to meet them. They were very angry. And that's kind of, I think if I've never been a victim of like sexual assault or rape, but if I had been, I would be angry I would be angry if women took advantage of those terms to try to get what they wanted.